Jane Goodall, the journey from field biologist to activist and inspirational leader. When Jane Goodall stepped onto the shores of Lake Tanganyika in Gombe Stream National Park in Tanzania in 1960, she began a lifelong journey which would take her from studying chimpanzees in the forests of Africa to traveling around the world as a lecturer and activist. As a leader in the field of primatology, Jane Goodall made groundbreaking contributions to the sciences of primate studies and anthropology, and challenged preconceived notions regarding gender, opening many doors for generations of female scientists to come. Her research and advocacy have created a lasting legacy, not only in the sciences, but also in conservation and gender equality that will continue far into the future. In 1960, the social climate was such that women were largely considered inferior to men, particularly in the workforce. Women generally worked as teachers, nurses, secretaries, cooks, and in other professions that were classified as appropriately domestic. As a result, there were not many women in the sciences. When women did enter a scientific field, they usually labored as research aides, often doing the bulk of the research, while credit for any discoveries they made went to the male scientists for whom they worked. Jane Goodall never considered her gender to be a limitation and had been raised by her mother to believe she could do anything if she only worked hard enough. While working as a secretary for noted anthropologist Louis Leakey, Goodall was offered a job as the lead researcher in a study of chimpanzees in Tanzania. She didn't hesitate to say yes, even though it was unusual at the time for a woman to be the leader of such a large project.
But I think the reason that people really just thought I was crazy was because I was the wrong sex. Girls did not do that sort of thing back then. But again, it was my mother. If you really want something, if you work hard, if you take advantage of opportunity, if you never give up, you will find a way. That was her message.
As Jane Goodall challenged and ignored these preconceived notions of gender inequality, she also turned the same attitude towards her work with the chimpanzees. Primatologists of the time viewed chimps as incapable of expressing human emotions and saw them largely as simple animals. It was believed they could not form complex social behaviors and acted mostly on instincts. It was thought that chimpanzees didn't hunt or eat meat. The scientific community was also convinced that humans were the only beings to make tools. This ability was often cited as what set humans apart from the other animals. In the course of her time at Gombe, Goodall would turn all of these assumptions upside down and prove that none were correct. Lacking formal training in established scientific methods, Goodall used an unconventional approach in her studies. Instead of following the convention of assigning numbers to the chimp she was studying, she gave them names, such as David Greybeard and Frodo. She viewed them as unique individuals with distinct personalities, which allowed her to observe behaviors that many classically trained scientists ignored. An arm draped by one chimp around the shoulders of another became more than a random touch. It became one friend giving another a hug. A female screeching over the body of her dead offspring was more than an instinctive action. It became a mother crying over the loss of her baby. It was clear to Goodall that the chimps of Gombe were displaying human-like emotions and had a very complex social system. Goodall also discovered that chimpanzees were not just vegetarians as previously thought. On numerous occasions, she observed them hunting insects, small animals, and monkeys. In 1975, she even saw acts of cannibalism, when Passion and Palm, a mother-daughter pair, killed and ate infants stolen from the other chimpanzee mothers. This behavior startled her but reaffirmed her belief that chimpanzees were much more complex than scientists believed. Additionally, she saw evidence of very human-like behavior when one group of Gombe chimps systematically hunted down and killed all members of another group over the course of 4 years. To Goodall, these killings were not random, but were instead purposeful actions taken to eliminate the second group. In other words, it was an act of warfare.
There was one 4-year period where the males of one community systematically attacked and left to die the members of a smaller neighboring community, annihilated the whole crew. It was what I call the 4-year war. And then they took over the now vacated territory to the south. Very human-like.
Amongst all of the discoveries Jane Goodall made at Gombe, perhaps the most important was that chimpanzees not only used tools but also made them. This was unheard of and had previously been a behavior that was attributed only to humans. In fact, in 1949, prominent English anthropologist Kenneth Oakley proposed that the most satisfactory definition of man from the scientific point of view is probably man the toolmaker. In her first year at Gombe, Goodall watched David Greybeard remove a twig from a tree, pull off the leaves, and use it to fish termites out of a mound. Immediately she knew that not only had she witnessed tool use, but also tool making.
and I suddenly saw this dark shape hunched over the golden soil of a termite mound, and a black hand reaching out and pushing a straw piece of grass down into the termite mound and withdrawing it. So that's tool using. But it was so surprising because somebody had said to me, if you see tool using, the whole study's worthwhile. Breaking off a leafy twig, stripping off the leaves, which is the beginning of tool making. And that was the thing. We were defined as man the tool maker. That made us more different than anything else from the rest of the animal kingdom. We were man the tool maker when I was growing up. And so it was after Louis Leakey got my telegram that he sent one back saying, we shall now have to redefine tool, redefine man, or accept chimpanzees as humans.
Goodall's discoveries were initially met with skepticism from the male-dominated primatology community. Her early work was dismissed as being anthropomorphic, or centered around assigning human emotions and motivations to simple animal behaviors. She was also criticized for taking a woman's view of the world as opposed to a scientist's view. Goodall faced an uphill battle both because of her gender and because of her lack of scientific training and unconventional research methods. However, she persevered and continued her research at Gombe. Her discoveries were eventually hailed as groundbreaking, and she was accepted as the world's foremost expert on chimpanzees and a leader in primate research. The field station that Jane Goodall first established in Gombe in 1960 is still in operation today as the Gombe Stream Research Center, and continues to provide the scientific community with valuable findings. In 1977, she established the Jane Goodall Institute to provide support for the Gombe Center and to allow it to function independently. Although research continues at Gombe, the priorities of her institute have shifted towards conservation and education. In 1986, she published The Chimpanzees of Gombe, Patterns of Behavior, which documented and analyzed her first 25 years of research data. That year, at a conference in Chicago, many chimpanzee field biologists gathered to celebrate the publishing of her book. Alarm spread amongst the biologists when stories were shared about diminishing habitat and other threats facing the world's chimpanzee population. Goodall entered the conference as a scientist but left as an activist, determined to educate the world about the plight of these amazing animals and to promote conservation efforts around the world. To further this goal, Goodall established the Roots and Shoots program in 1991 through her institute. This program is a youth-led initiative aimed at promoting conservation and education at the community level. It builds on the legacy and vision Goodall established during her time in Gombe. Realizing that the problems facing chimpanzees are interwoven with the problems facing humans, the program helps young people identify challenges facing their communities and assist them in developing sustainable solutions to address those challenges. The philosophy of Roots and Shoots is that in order to help animals, you must first help humans. Her program also inspires young girls to get involved in society and community building. Dr. Goodall currently travels the world 300 days out of each year promoting conservation efforts, not only for chimpanzees, but for the environment in general. Her lobbying efforts have led directly to the establishment of Chimponga Chimpanzee Sanctuary in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and to other wildlife preserves around the world. In 2012, she gave the keynote address at a Smart Talk Women's Conference in Des Moines, Iowa. Although she spoke of her passion for the chimpanzees of Gombe, she primarily focused on the challenges still facing women, both in the field of science and in society. She continues to serve as a role model for young women around the world and has inspired many prominent female researchers to enter their respective fields of study. When Goodall started her research in 1960, only 7% of the scientists in life and physical sciences were female. By 2011, that number had soared to 41%. Although there are many factors to be considered in this increase, Jane Goodall's influence and contributions cannot be ignored. Gilbert Grosvenor, past president of the National Geographic Society, stated, "Jane Goodall's trailblazing path for other women primatologists is arguably her greatest legacy. Indeed, women now dominate long-term primate behavioral studies worldwide." In April 2002, Dr. Goodall was named as a United Nations Messenger of Peace by UN Secretary General Kofi Annan. He praised her for her dedication to what is best for mankind. In accepting this appointment, Goodall vowed to promote the message that, to achieve global peace, we must not only stop fighting each other, but also stop destroying the natural world. Her new role as a UN Messenger of Peace builds on a lifetime of leadership both in the sciences and in society, further ensuring a legacy that will last well beyond her years.